Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite podcast, the podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom. From movies, comics, TV shows, video games, we got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here, as always, with Court. And Court, we're here to talk about another Marvel thing today.
Yep, we're here to talk about Daredevil.
Nope.
Well, kinda.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. We're here to talk about She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Attorney Avocado at Law.
Yeah, so She-Hulk finally wrapped up its first season, and that's what we're here for. We're here to give you the full recap. We've held on to all of our thoughts, save for the Daredevil episode that we talked about last week.
Because I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, but yeah, we saved all of our thoughts and opinions and everything on this show for this very episode, where we could talk about everything that we had to talk about. Other than that, we do have quite a bit of news to get through, starting with, unfortunately, a passing in the world of entertainment, a big one. So Robbie Coltrane, the Scottish actor, most notable, known for playing Hagrid in the Harry Potter series, has passed away at the age of 72. And man, this one hurts.
Yeah, it does. These are always the most difficult, but when it's somebody you grow up with, that's when it gets extremely difficult. So I know so many people were sharing posts about him, how much they kind of influenced their childhood, and that's what these projects can do. You kind of hold on to these characters for so long, so it's really tough to see him go. Yeah,
that one of the modern archetypes of the true gentle giant was the character of Hagrid in Harry Potter, and he brilliantly portrayed it. I mean, a lot of people have been sharing the video of the Harry Potter reunion special that aired on HBO Max when he got quite emotional talking about the character and the character's legacy, talking about how in 50 years, we'll be able to see Hagrid, and unfortunately he won't be around. And but Hagrid lives on, and that's the thing. Obviously, yeah, it just sucks when you lose kind of, we talked about these things in the past, but when it's someone that's like a touchstone of your childhood and someone who's really well known for this one particular thing and did it so well,
right?
And is a mainstay still to this day in pop culture. I mean, down in Universal Studios in Orlando, they obviously have that whole Harry Potter experience of the Wizarding World, and Hagrid is there, and it's part of the attractions, and his portrayal is there. So in terms of like living on, he'll definitely live on through that. He'll live on through the films that are still beloved, and yeah, it's just really unfortunate. Yeah, it's just real tough. As always, no easy way to transition from that, but the best way to transition that is with some Dune news, and that's what we do have. So we're this Dune Sisterhood TV show is slowly coming together, and we talked a little bit about the casting a couple weeks ago, I think. We got our leads, and now we have another casting. So Indira Varma, who was most notable as she was in the Obi-Wan show.
Yep. As
a character. Right. I can't recall the name of.
What did I say? I said that she would have been Obi-Wan's love interest if the show was 10 episodes instead of 6.
Yep. And then she played Oberyn Martell's wife in season 4 of Game of Thrones, which I don't want to talk too much about because one of us is currently watching Game of Thrones.
I wonder who that is.
And I don't want to spoil too much about her role in that. But she's very good in that, and, I think is a good addition to this cast of this Dune spinoff that's slowly taking shape. And then also Dune got moved up.
Yeah,
so Dune 2 got moved up.
For reasons that will hold for a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, that in a world of film where delays are the dominant thing, we definitely have some of those to talk about. But, rare to see a movie get moved up.
Yeah, I think Avengers Infinity War was moved up a week. That's what I remember when that happened. I think Robert Downey Jr. tweeted, "Hey, can me and my friends see the movie a little early?" And then Marvel Studios just push the button, give them the movie a week earlier.
Venom 2 got moved up.
It did. It did get moved up.
Sony's unabashed confidence.
Right, but we're living in this age of these spin-off shows, and this is where I think HBO Max can truthfully, gain some credibility in terms of their television aspect of it. I mean, obviously you're watching all of your major shows on there, but I'm talking about extending universes from films. This is a good time to do it. I mean, you're gonna get the Gotham spin-off for the Penguin. Yep. For Colin Farrell. I still can't believe that Colin Farrell put that makeup on and was just going I loved him in the Batman, but it's good. And then we have Dune Sisterhood, and now that Dune's pushed up, I think the Dune verse specifically is starting to expand quite nicely and come together really, really, really nicely. I can definitely see them you know, maybe even trying to get like another movie that's outside of just Paul Atreides and his story too. I could definitely see that happening as well. And there's a lot in that Dune universe to explore.
Yeah, we talked about that, you know, way back when. It feels like forever ago that Dune released, and we talked about that it does have the opportunity to be this kind of next big branching fandom kind of film franchise, and I think Warner Brothers certainly seems to feel that way, and I think, you know, the people making the movies seem to also feel that way. So,
and I mean, like I've said this before, it's about who you got to make the movie. You got somebody that was at the all-time, you know, peak of their career, and then Denis Villeneuve said, you know what, I'm going to take the biggest franchise that I've already taken. And this was after he did Blade Runner, so obviously he was dedicated to this. I mean, he shared his admiration for the Dune universe and the Dune books that he read when he was a kid. So I believe that he's in a rare opportunity to have this kind of have us really live through this new sci-fi world. I mean, we're outside of the era of the Lord of the Rings. We're seeing it through television now, but in the movie aspect, I think there's a void that Dune can fill for the big sci-fi thing, sci-fi fantasy thing that people go see every couple of years.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, hopefully I'm intrigued by this.
Me too.
We talked about the show before and what it can possibly do to help expand the lore of the universe, especially behind some of the aspects that I could definitely see people getting kind of confused about based on how they were presented in the film and not really understanding or not really knowing, you know, what the Bene Gesserit are all about. I feel like this is a good kind of insertion for that.
I have a feeling that Dune 2, like once you watch Dune 1 and Dune 2, by the time that gets there, Dune 1's going to become so much, like, I think that movie's truthfully special. I think it's even going to become even more special once you pair it with part 2. I know Timothée Chalamet, obviously you're the main actor in your movie, you're trying to promote it, but he did talk about how amazing it was to work with Austin Butler against him and then kind of with Florence Pugh, so they're adding some incredible talent all across the board, and they're not adding these actors that are like in their 40s and 50s, they're adding these actors that are in their 20s and 30s, which even makes me feel better. So the future of, you know, the movies feel good in terms of, you know, your actor standpoint. I mean, I can list you off so many actors that are in their 20s and early 30s that are just starting to become absolute stars in the world. So I think we're seeing kind of a changing of the guard of, you know, our titans of industry in the acting world. Yeah,
I totally agree. So we have some casting news for a couple of different things. So first and foremost, Michelle Yeoh and Pete Davidson have been cast in the Transformers Rise of the Beasts film, which we can now confirm is it will be basically a sequel to Bumblebee because Haley Steinfeld is also returning in that film. And Michelle Yeoh will be playing, I just have the name in front of me. It is Aerozor, the Maximal Aerozor, and Davidson will be playing Mirage. So I feel like this is a movie that kind of like is flying under the radar a little bit because it feels like Bumblebee doesn't get talked about too much, and I thought Bumblebee was really, really good.
Well, I mean, I think it doesn't get talked about because people had such a bad taste in their mouth from the Michael Bay Transformers, where they're just like, we're not even going to bother with this. So I think you should bother. I think Bumblebee was a pretty solid film, and it was fun. It's something underrated to say that something was fun, but
it was about the Transformers.
It was about the Transformers. The voice acting was good, and I mean, if you are going to have your human characters, you maybe want to get a charismatic human character, and her relationship with Bumblebee was so refreshing, you know, amidst Shia LaBeouf's, you know, relationship with the Transformers, where he was the dominant force, which vice versa, they were the dominant force in that movie. So I think this can be good.
Yeah, and Beast Wars is fun.
Yeah, Beast Wars is cool. that it's crazy that you said Michelle Yeoh, and I was like, that's insane. But then you said Pete Davidson, I was just like, excuse me.
Don't worry, we have some more baffling casting news later on.
Maybe the craziest casting news we've ever gotten.
I really do think so. And then we have some casting for the upcoming Percy Jackson series, but, you know, a couple years away. So we have casting for Ares, Echidna, and Medusa. So the Ares casting is played by Adam Copeland, which my wrestling fans may know as WWE superstar Edge, who has put in quite an acting resume. He was in an episode of the Flash TV series as Atom Smasher. He was in Vikings, and what was, you know, I haven't watched that show, but by all accounts, he was great in that.
Yeah, people really like that show.
Yeah, so cool. I think perfect casting for him to play Ares, the god of war.
Yep.
You know, he's a wrestler, very bombastic, so that's exciting. So
how's this 13-year-old kid gonna beat him?
Ask Kratos for tips. He knows about killing Ares.
Yeah, he does.
So Suzanne Cryer has been cast as Echidna. Suzanne Cryer, most notable for Two Guys and a Girl, and also Silicon Valley. So experienced actress there. And then I know your personal favorite, so Jessica Parker Kennedy, obviously probably most notable recently for the role of XS, aka Nora Allen, in the Flash TV series, and she will be playing Medusa, which is tremendous.
Yeah, and Medusa's going to be she's a big piece of the first book in The Lightning Thief, which they're going to go off for at least season 1, I think. So I have a feeling that this show is going to try to do each year for them. So like,
which is smart.
Yeah, Lightning Thief, Sea of Monsters, and then keep going until you get to the last Olympian. But no, I'm on board with all 3 of these. I mean, obviously Jessica Parker Kennedy, that's a cool one. To get to play Medusa, I know she's excited for that. That Ares casting, I think, is probably the coolest out of the 3 of these, because like you said, you want to get somebody that can, chew the scenery a little bit, have these big lines of dialogue, just this like not real villain of the week, but villain of the series type of feel to him. So I think that's going to be a fun choice. Did they cast the Pantheon, the rest of them too? Like, do we know at least, like, the only one I really want to know, maybe the 2 are probably Zeus and Poseidon. I mean, obviously Zeus because he's the king of the gods.
I don't think so. I can look it up quick, but I'm not entirely sure.
And then obviously Poseidon because that's Percy's dad, so... He's what?
Whoa. Come on, man. Nothing yet.
If you think She-Hulk has issues with fathers in the MCU, just wait until you get to the Percy Jackson series.
Yeah, nothing yet for Zeus and Poseidon. So.
I wouldn't be surprised if they get a name. Hey, man, you know who they should get to play Poseidon? Ryan Reynolds. That would be hilarious.
That would be pretty funny. So what else do we have? So Brendan Fraser has been making... Oh, no. Wait, I skipped... we can talk about Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, let's talk about Brendan. He's on the whiteboard now. We got to talk about Brendan Fraser.
So he has piped up, and he was like, hey, man, I see all these movie franchises getting resurrections and sequels at long after their expiration date. I'd like to maybe do another Mummy movie, because Tom Cruise's wasn't fun. And it's hard to disagree with him.
Yeah. Yeah. You remember... the MonsterVerse thing that they tried to do. They even had like the...
And Tom Cruise was going to be the villain of that?
But not really, right? Because...
At the end of that, if I'm remembering the end of his Mummy movie correctly, he just became death?
Right, he got possessed by death, so... I don't know what they were going for, because who was on that list? It was Russell Crowe was going to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
He was in that Mummy movie. Yep.
Crazy.
Angelina Jolie.
Yep.
We had somebody who was going to be the Invisible Man.
And then we got somebody that was going to be Frankenstein, if I'm not mistaken.
And a werewolf?
And a werewolf, yes.
There was a Wolfman cast?
I think so. Yeah, that was your MonsterVerse. Well, I mean, obviously, what year was that? I think that was like 2017 or something.
And Luke Evans was possibly going to come back as Dracula?
Dracula, yeah.
To tie in Dracula Untold?
Right, yeah. Is that a movie you love?
It's fine. I liked it quite a bit.
It is fine. But yeah, Brendan Fraser said, you know what? We should have a little bit more fun. And man, I think the fan reception to him coming back for a Mummy series would be
happen.
So good. And that would be the thing that if obviously his career is probably going to get revitalized because he might get nominated for an Oscar this year, but this also might help to give him not only a franchise back, but his franchise back. That would be a really cool look into that. I think the Mummy, can serve a lot of purpose in the modern age too. And Brendan Fraser's just so dang charismatic. We're going back to the 90s. Give me more Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that film franchise kind of would serve well in today's times, whereas, like, we talked about The Matrix a couple of times, where, like, maybe The Matrix didn't quite work so well, but, like, The Mummy is, like, a fun kind of riff on Indiana Jones. Right. It's, like, a classic kind of action-adventure kind of fun movie that I just feel like anybody can enjoy, you know what I mean? And I think just seeing Brendan Fraser in that role again would be... It's no harm, no foul. Like, it would be really hard for that movie to not be well received.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's not high concept. It's not any of those things. It's just a fun, harmless action adventure for 90 minutes to 2 hours. Right. And then it's done.
Yeah. And you also got to strike while the iron's hot. And the iron for Brendan Fraser is, is magma right now. So I think this is the perfect time to kind of, revisit that. Maybe that movie hopefully gets made in like the next 3 years.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So we got some Invincible news potentially. So the IP, behind Invincible is going to possibly probably going to enter the realm of gaming. A series of Invincible games is possibly in development. I don't think we have any developers or anything like that, or even what an Invincible game would look like, but I'm for it.
Me too.
I think definitely the superhero genre of gaming has not been the strongest over the last 20 or so years. I mean, you talk about the Batman Arkham games are like that's the top of the pantheon.
Yeah, that's like 1A, and then the Spider-Man 2018 is like 1B
and
for
then
superhero gaming.
You know, maybe the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then probably quite a significant drop off.
I feel like the Guardians of the Galaxy game is like a cult classic. It's going to be like a cult, even though it's like good. It's like it's
very good. We talked about it.
That story is like incredible. But yeah, I'm just trying to think about, you know, the way the compendiums are kind of set up, because just for you, the people that haven't read that Invincible or the 3 compendiums that Robert Kirkman wrote, they literally scratched the surface for season 1 of Invincible. Like, it didn't even cover I don't even think it covered an eighth of the first compendium. Like, we really have not seen anything yet from that Invincible universe. So, I mean, the game has a lot of potential to pick and choose what it wants to do, but they can go even deeper into that storyline. You know what a game like that can maybe, you know, use? Maybe a game like that is where you could try to, you know, create your own hero. I think that might be an interesting concept, because it might be a little difficult, just because Invincible itself in the animation live action is it's in its infancy, so it doesn't have a lot to go off of, but the comics itself are so expansive where you can kind of pick and choose and maybe you see where you're at in the universe and go from there. That'd
be very cool. Yeah, I'd be for that. I think I think you definitely want to lean into the comic bookiness, kind of the same animation style.
Gosh, yeah.
I mentioned to you the Ultimate Spider-Man games that came out years and years ago that adapted basically the Ultimate Spider-Man panels. It looked like you were playing a comic book. So I imagine much of the same they could use for an Invincible, game, series of games, whatever they want to do with it. But no, I like that idea a lot of kind of creating your own character and inserting that, because that's there's a fine line with that, where you are inserting a created character into a known universe.
Right.
But I think Invincible is just kind of niche enough that people won't be too, bugged
right,
by.
Yeah, like, why are you changing things? Or I think that would be a cool idea. And then there's teams in the Invincible universe where you can have your hero join one of those teams. Maybe not the Guardians of the Globe.
And maybe
you know what? Maybe they should join the Guardians of the Globe, because there's going to be vacancies now.
And maybe the main Invincible story is like happening in the background while your character is doing whatever they're doing. That'd be cool.
Because that's one of the cool things about the Invincible universe too, is like there's so much, because it's like that's one of the things they were trying to do. It's like there's so much going on in that universe. Like, it's meant to be like that. It's meant to be like if you were to pick up like a Justice League comic that was rated R in like 2010, like the universe is already established, so there's so much crap going on everywhere else that like there's an alien invasion, and then there's a crime syndicate, and then there's just like the other stuff going on all at the same time. So that game definitely could work like that.
Yeah, totally agree. So we got a first look at the Creed 3 series of posters.
Yeah, is right. Is right not only for Adonis Creed, but for the Avengers subsequently. And is in order, because Jonathan Majors looks absolutely shredded. Did you see that GQ?
I did.
Oh man!
And I was like,
yeah. I gotta get in the gym.
I gotta go, man.
I gotta go to the gym, man. Yeah, he's looking yoked. He's looking swole. Whatever the gym bros use, that's exactly how he looks. And I'm excited for this movie. I mean, Creed 1, I think you know what I think about Creed 1? Creed 1 in like the modern age was like one of the first reboots that worked. It's like in your 2015 after, because we are in the age of, nostalgia and reboots. Like, Creed 1 was like a trailblazer for that. And man, that movie, Creed 1 holds a special place in my heart. And I mean, we talked about how good Ryan Coogler is behind the camera. It was Fruitvale Station to Creed 1. And think about Ryan Coogler getting a franchise like that at that age too. How old was he? He was maybe 30?
Maybe 30?
Yeah, like he's, in terms of your movie making career, he's still a child. He's still like a kid in this movie making world, and he takes on one of the biggest movie franchises in the world.
He's 36 now.
Right, and that was 2015, so he's 29. Insane. So yeah, hats off to Ryan Coogler and what he was able to do with his career, but obviously you kind of, pass your keys off to a different director for Creed 2, but I don't think I've talked about it on here, but I do really enjoy Creed 2. I know, storytelling wise, some people I think it's very cliche. Whatever, you bring Drago and his son back, cool.
It's cliche, but it's also what people wanted.
Right, it is what people wanted. Because I think if sometimes you go for those original stories, people are going to get upset with you for going with the original because you're like, there was no homage to anything. I think we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Sure.
Not doing stuff and doing stuff for, you're never going to make everybody happy. There's this training montage in 2 that I think is incredibly shot, and Ryan Coogler was still producing Creed 2. Specifically for this one, the big piece of this is that Michael B. Jordan is behind the camera for this one, so that's going to be really interesting to see. I think what's cool about that is who understands Adonis Creed more than Michael B. Jordan at this point, so to put him behind the camera is going to be great. I don't think do we know who Jonathan Majors is playing?
All we know is his name is Anderson Dame.
I wonder if he's either one of the kids from the orphanage that he was in, or if he's gonna be, what did I say? I think he said he might be a long lost brother of his, like another kid that Apollo Creed had. We'll see. If it's not, it's not. That's fine.
And little Drago's back in this one too, so he'll be back.
Yeah. Is he going to train him so he can fight?
I mean, that's the Rocky kind of classic Rocky formula, is like your rivals become your partners, basically.
That would be kind of funny.
That's how the Rocky kind of saga goes, because the Rocky saga is like the definition of the Qui-Gon Jinn. There's always a bigger fish. That's what Rocky is predicated on, is there's always a bigger bad, there's always another monster to conquer.
Right.
So...
And this is going to be so cool. Another reason is, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. We were talking about like actors, and Jonathan Majors also falls in that thing I was talking about, those late 20s, early 30s actors. Like, that's going to define our generation. I think Jonathan Majors being, the biggest villain for the MCU since Thanos in the modern age, and then you have him going in another huge film franchise. I mean, the man's magnetic. I mean, it's so cool to watch, and I feel like it's such a unique thing to film and TV, where you can see it happening. Yeah.
You can see it. You know what I mean? Like, this person, they have one great performance in a thing, and you're like, oh, yeah, this guy. Right. And then they get into the next thing and the next thing, and all of a sudden they're like hitting all these major touchstones. And it's something that's, maybe, I guess music is similar. Like, music's a similar thing, where like someone comes out with like a hit song or a hit album, and you're like, oh, this person. But then, sometimes they fizzle out, you know what I mean? And the same thing happens in film. But like with Jonathan Majors, like, you just felt it. Like Lovecraft Punch, Lovecraft Punching.
Oh my gosh.
You just like, oh, like this guy. And
I got an idea for a Halloween episode for Lovecraft Country. I think that would be cool. Maybe not this year.
Yeah. And then, like, you saw him in Lovecraft Country, and you're like, oh, this guy. And then, like, the wheels started spinning, and then he got cast in a Marvel thing, and you're like, oh, boy.
And then you saw him in the Marvel thing, and you're like, this guy, this is the last episode with no action, and I'm just fully invested and engaged. And then you make him the star amongst a star-studded cast for The Harder They Fall, and again, he's leading these big ensemble casts, and it's just working every time. I think that there's something relatable about him. Like, I can't put my finger on it. Like, I think that's why he's so good, is because he somehow feels normal. I don't know how to explain it. Like, there's this normalcy to him that I just like, that I feel like everybody can kind of relate with. I think it's the way he like talks. It's just very like, it's very like quippy, but it's also like there's weight to it.
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that Creed movie a lot. Ezra Miller. So I guess this is like a two-pronged thing. So obviously there's the legal trouble surrounding them, and then there's the Flash reshoots that took place over the last couple of weeks. And so they pled not guilty to a series of felony burglaries
in Vermont. That was the stuff we talked about before.
Yes, and that is carrying a potential maximum sentence of 26 years. I don't think it's going to come to that, because media does that all the time. You're like, maximum sentence of this, and it's never that.
Right, especially for actors, musicians, like people of note.
So I don't think it will come to that. I'm anticipating that something will be settled, and there'll be a big fine and maybe some jail time, but it's not going to be like this big thing. But the Flash reshoots are what interested me more than the legal stuff, because man, they just will not give up on this movie no matter what.
No, and I'm telling you, it has to be because of what this movie is going to do to the DCEU. I gotta think they needed this movie to come out before Black Adam, before the Batgirl, because I think if this movie comes out, the Batgirl probably doesn't get canceled if the Flash comes out, because why would you just waste Michael Keaton without this? But I don't know. This has got to be one of the most unique movie situations in Hollywood history. Like, I just don't understand why there's just this everlasting need to throw this movie out, but then the Batgirl gets canceled. Like, there's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, and who knows what that is at this point, because, you know, reshoots are expensive.
Reshoots are expensive,
so they're pumping even more money into this, that this project that's been around since, like, 2014.
Yeah, this project's been forever. They've been talking about this. Remember was it before Batman vs. Superman? I'll never forget, because The Flash was on, and, like, I think it was during season 2, and everybody was talking about it because Jeff Johns and Kevin Smith had, like, that one show, and it was just like, all right, everybody's starting to love this Flash TV show. DC is about to take... I remember this because this is when the first Civil War trailer dropped, and then the Batman vs. Superman trailer dropped, and people are like, oh, this DC universe looks dark, edgy, and cool. Like, this might take over this kid-friendly Marvel. And then, I mean, we all know how that played out, but at the time, like, Ezra Miller as the Flash, like, it was going to be a team-up movie with Cyborg. Like, this movie looks infinitely different from what it did before, so...
Then there's just the off-screen mess that's been happening. And then, you know, in the backdrop, there's this Black Adam thing that is gaining momentum as we approach its release. Like, you have to wonder if Black Adam does well, if they're even worried about the Flash anymore.
Yeah, because, I mean, the thing about Black Adam, the thing that we can't talk about.
We talked about it last week.
Yeah, I don't want to...
Heavy spoilers,
yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that. But the thing, if this is true, then, man, this is going to get really, really interesting for just the broader scope. Like, this is to the point where, like, that thing happened last week, and I was like, where's the DCEU? Now I finally felt footing for the DCEU that I hadn't felt in so long.
And just from a PR standpoint, right? Who would you rather build your big cinematic movie universe around? Ezra Miller, with numerous legal and other issues that have transpired over the last, like, 6 months, or The Rock, who is a PR dream, essentially. Right. Like, who are you going to go with at the end of the day? Like, you're going to go with The Rock, because he's been apparently the driving force in rebuilding the DCU and kind of getting it, you know, on track for something. Right. And then B, his movies always make money. Right. So, you know, I have to wonder if this Black Adam movie gains, you know, anywhere like that $500 to $700 million range. Like, are they just like, don't really care about the Flash as much? I don't know.
I'm so much different than I was a month ago, because I think I even on here said a month ago, I don't know how much money this movie's going to make. Now I'm like, I think this movie might do 8 plus.
It's gaining momentum.
It's all about if you can release it in China. Like, that's the way it usually goes down to, but Aquaman did incredible in China. And then the only thing I'm worried about is Sabak is rumored to be, like, the main villain of this thing. So I know he kind of looks like the devil, and they're very, like, those Middle Eastern countries, and China that's why Doctor Strange didn't get released in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. They won't release the movie if you have a depiction of the devil. So regardless, I think they're probably going to find a way to work around it. I mean, it's The Rock. They'll probably find a way to work around it and, you know, get this movie shown everywhere. If that's the case, I can very much see this movie doing 800 plus. But for the Ezra Miller aspect, like I said, it's the big what if of, like, if none of this ever happens, like, what was the Flash gonna be and what is it now? Like, that kind of, you know, that middle ground of what happened and what evolved, it's so interesting of how things changed in the last, it's not even like the last, like, 9 or 8 years. It's like the last, like, 2 years, like, what changed, because the movie was going to come out, they showed footage, and people were on board. Ben Affleck was back, Michael Keaton was back in the same movie.
Yeah, not only that, but then the Snyder Cut came out, and I quite liked The Flash in the Snyder Cut.
And not only that, I believe that if the right pitch was made, I understand Robert Pattinson's the Batman right now. I would not put it past Ben Affleck coming back to be Batman again. Like, I think, you know, because I can't help myself, I watched Man of Steel 2 days ago, and then I started Batman vs. Superman, because I guess at this point, I'm probably just going to watch the 3 of these things, and then I'll just start going through some of these DCU movies before Thursday. But I was watching it, and I was just like, I think Ben Affleck would maybe do this again. If they get Henry Cavill back, then I think they might get Ben Affleck back, and then obviously Gal Gadot's going to come back whenever. Jason Momoa is going to come back whenever. Like,
Ray Fisher's never coming back.
Yeah, Ray Fisher's never touching a DC property again, but unfortunate.
Yeah, very
super unfortunate for him. But you have Martian Manhunter now, like Green Lanterns, you can use him whenever you want to. I think that's something they teased for too long, and I think Ryan Reynolds is so far removed that you can listen, just get Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell's at the top of his height, right? You know Glenn Powell was in Spy Kids 3?
Yes.
Man. When I saw that, I was like, the heck's going on? Is that Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick? Yeah, get Glenn Powell, have him be Green Lantern. Like, just build out. This is the time. Like, if you're going to do it, just, you have the Justice Society, you have the Suicide Squad, you have the Justice League, like, do it. Have their teams be there. Like, you want it this time to, like, hit the stride, it's now.
Yeah, and like I said, you have a wonderful PR machine that fell into your lap, essentially, because, you know, as much as people want to talk about him, he's been very passionate about this Black Adam project for a long time.
Yeah, since like 2008
and that's rare. Yeah. You know, for a money-making machine like him to be so hyper-focused on one thing for as long as he has been.
I mean, I think I know why. Because of how the Rock looks. Like, there was, like, a short list of characters he could have played. Yeah. So obviously Black Adam was that was the biggest character that looked like him, that he was like, I could probably do this.
So good on him for staying with it as long as he has.
And lie. DC lie, because people don't read comics. Just lie and say that the Black Adam's like one of the biggest characters. Like, no, just lie and say that's the truth.
Which is what he's been doing.
It's not true, but lie and say that it's true, because people don't care either way. It's
Marvel built their whole MCU universe around Iron Man, so.
Right.
Speaking of Marvel, so we're going to transition to heaps of Marvel stuff and before we talk about She-Hulk. So the delays have come. So I think we both kind of saw this coming in the wake of all the Blade news that had come out recently. So Blade, on top of Deadpool, Fantastic Four, and Avengers Secret Wars, have all been pushed back from their original release dates. Blade has been pushed back to September 6th, 2024. Deadpool 3 has been pushed back from September to November of 2024. Fantastic Four has been pushed back to February 14th, so Valentine's Day, 2025. And then Avengers Secret Wars, predictably, as we said when these release dates were announced, has been pushed off of the same year release schedule as Kang Dynasty and will be releasing in the usual Avengers time slot of May 2026. So I said this to you when this was announced. I think that's a good thing that all these things are getting pushed back.
You want those movies out when people are getting out of school, summer's about to start. It's the first thing that people will talk about for the whole summer going on. That's exactly where you want your big time movie, because the big rumor that we didn't talk about before that's apparently happened today, that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back for Secret Wars, which, can I be honest? Yeah, you're probably going to have Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. back for Secret Wars. You're going to have everybody you can for Secret Wars. This is the one. So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, people always misconstrue delays with bad. You want the best case? Is Top Gun Maverick is by far probably the best case. If you delay your movie, it's probably a good thing, because that means that there's a lot of tender love and care going into it. So makes sense. I'm glad that Mahershala Ali understands that it's not a bad thing that Blade, like, I think I talked about it. This might be the best thing that's happening for this Blade project, is that they were like, somebody at somewhere in Marvel Studios had to, I don't know if it was She-Hulk breaking the fourth wall, somebody had to go, whoa, like, we're doing way too much right now. Like,
and also, on top of that, Michael Giacchino has come out and said, look, I'd love to do Blade, but I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Which is, we figured that.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last week. It would be, like, so cool if he did Blade and then did the Midnight Suns. Like, if Michael Giacchino was just like the Russo brothers of, like,
Supernatural
of the supernatural aspect of the MCU. But no, it's a big ass that you're doing for.
And he's also, like, one of the most sought after composers in Hollywood.
Exactly.
So it makes sense. But back to your point about the Blade movie.
Yeah, like, it's a good thing. So hopefully what comes of this is we're gonna add a director that's dedicated to this project. I'm thinking about, like, Scott Derrickson for, like, not Scott Derrickson specifically, but, like, what Scott Derrickson did for Doctor Strange, what Chloe Zhao did for The Eternals. Like, add a director that's sole focus is that character in that universe. And then you just keep adding. Maybe just add another actor in there too. Like, we don't even know who the villain of this Blade movie is going to be, but now you have time, and writing is so essential and it's so key. This is where all these projects starts. It's from conception and from writing, and you add the writer from Moon Knight too. If you don't love Moon Knight, one thing I'll always give Moon Knight, it's conceptually probably one of the coolest things that Marvel's ever done from, like, a character standpoint. And Blade's such a character-driven story too, so I think that's going to work as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I'm coming from, being a fan of video games, like, I'm always a fan of things getting delayed, because it's less time crunch, it's less cutting corners, it's more focus on developing a thing. And I think for, really all four of these projects that we're now getting pushed back, I think they could afford to use a little more tender loving care. You talk about Blade, Deadpool 3, obviously a lot of people are looking forward to. The Fantastic Four and Secret Wars are two of the biggest things that they've ever done. So you need to make sure that those things are dialed in. And, you know, if you have to push it back, I don't expect this to be the last time some of these things get delayed. I feel like Secret Wars Baby is probably going to be hard set. And that may really stick because
it's a May, and then it's the big thing for me. It was separate in the year. Like, that was the one thing that was coming out in the next, like, it was Fantastic Four and Secret Wars were coming out in the next year. So I think there was a reason why those two projects were like ever so separate. That also, in my opinion, it breathes air for some of those, you know, blank slates that were sitting in there. One of those blank slates could be the World War Hulk movie. That this whole Hulk storyline that they're setting up in the MCU is catching like a lot of steam now since She-Hulk and since the casting news we're going to talk about in a second. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. And then a little bit of music news. So Rihanna has been tapped to record the end credits theme for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. You know, not something we usually talk about, but I think, you know, much like anything related to the original Black Panther movie, the music was such, like, not the score, but the actual, like, the soundtrack that was curated by Kendrick Lamar was so important to that movie.
So incredible. Like, that's an example of your soundtrack. Like, you have your score with Ludwig Göransson, and then you have your backdrop of this music too. Like, marrying those two things were so incredible. But
it's like a cultural thing.
Oh, that album is so incredible. And now you have Rihanna, who hasn't made music in so long, and she's back. Marvel brought her back. Marvel brought her and somebody in. That's just. The people that don't know this news are going to be like, it's because we keep teasing with this big thing that happened, but I'm looking forward. We're like a little over 3 weeks away from seeing this movie, which is just crazy to think about. But getting her on there is great. I think some other artists are probably going to be on that soundtrack. They're going to try to double down. I mean, this is, again, we talked about it. This homage movie to Chadwick Boseman. I think every last stop you can pull out is going to be attempted, and getting Rihanna to do your end credit suite is right there with it. I mean, all the stars from one I think a Grammy, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, and it won an Oscar, I think, in 2018 for Best Original Song, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So they've got a good track record. So I think Kendrick Lamar is back to do this soundtrack as well. So
yeah, I'm excited for that. And then here we go. The last bit of news that we have, which I personally scoffed at, I think, last week.
And I didn't. I said,
and you didn't.
I was like, I knew. I had a feeling.
I scoffed at this notion that this would happen, but via Deadline and numerous other news outlets at this point, it is confirmed that Harrison Ford will be taking on the role of Thunderbolt Ross in not only the Thunderbolts, but also Captain America 4 New World Order. And that's a real thing that I just said. Harrison Ford is going to be entering the MCU, obviously taking on the role that the late William Hurt had previously.
Right.
And he unfortunately passed away. So they tapped Harrison Ford for this, and he said yes somehow, some way. And I don't even know where to go with this.
No, I mean, first and foremost, again, rest in peace to William Hurt.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I mean, that's Thunderbolt Ross up until like to the end of high school for me.
And just wonderful.
Oh no, it's a great cast, especially in the incredible. Like some of the lines he's given in Incredible Hulk,
it's a shame that he was not able to get to, you know.
Yeah, because this is the thing that Thunderbolt Ross gets to is the thing we're going to talk about in a second, but you know, it does suck that he can't see it through, but to get Harrison Ford and on board is the first thing we talked about, what the sell was. You want to do the funny sell or probably what the real sell was?
I mean, my theory was...
Yeah, let's do I have a theory and you have a theory.
My theory from the beginning was, they said to Harrison Ford, look, you don't get to do Indiana Jones 5 unless you do a Marvel movie, because Disney owns both those things. And they're hanging that over his head. And then he was coerced to say yes. So that's my theory, because I mean, and then on top of that, the bag is outrageous for this, right?
Yeah. So that's my funny theory too. I went deeper with the Indiana Jones. I think they held Ke Huy Quan hostage.
They saw how they reacted to each other at the D23, and they were like, "We got him."
Yeah, we got him. We know what Harrison Ford cares about. It's like seeing like an anti-hero and like getting the thing they care about to make them break. So it's like Joel and Ellie, like they captured Ellie and Joel goes off, or like they get John Wick's dog and he goes off. They got Ke Huy Quan and Harrison Ford was put in a choice that he never had to make before.
Choose! Man.
So, yeah, he's really Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross.
I can't believe it.
I just can't wait until people ask him about this. And he's like, what's a comic book?
I said, don't ask him what his favorite Thunderbolt Ross moment is.
No, he does not care.
Don't ask him what his favorite Marvel movie is.
Doesn't care.
Don't ask him about the Red Hulk.
He's gonna like be in the junket and like the stinger on like the last TV, like the last trailer is gonna be him like as Red Hulk. And then, like, he's going to be in the Pep Junkie. He's going to be like, how do you feel about this? He's like, what's the Red Hulk? What's a Hulk? Mark Ruffalo is also going to be sitting there.
And look, Harrison Ford's great. He's a great actor. He's tremendous. But if you're expecting him to be Thaddeus Ross, like, as William Hurt portrayed Thaddeus Ross, no. You're going to get Harrison Ford as Harrison Ford. You might get a mustache.
You're going to get they got to give him the mustache. 100%. We're cutting into the She-Hulk time to talk about a mustache. This is where we're at.
Because this is insane.
This is crazy. This is wild. But
80-some-odd-year-old Harrison Ford who cannot be bothered to talk about Star Wars.
No.
The only thing he likes talking about is Indiana Jones, and he came around on Blade Runner because Ryan Gosling was a great press junket partner.
Right, yeah.
To have.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's a cool guy. So the serious aspect of this is the fact that he's gonna... So, it was one thing when it was being rumored. So, the thing that got me this morning is when it said he's gonna star aside Anthony Mackie in New World Order, and immediately it clicked. I'm like, they're gonna do this Hulk storyline for this. So, what I think's gonna happen is... I think that I don't think you just have Tatiana Maslany just do She-Hulk. Yeah. She's gonna be a new Avenger, but...
So, I have a slight gripe with this. Are we doing a disservice to Anthony Mackie here?
I think we talked about it a little bit, but I don't think we went into depth about it before we hopped on. Yeah, I think this is the one thing that I was afraid of, and there's two big things. One, is now this Harrison Ford thing that came out of the work, but the other thing that I was already nervous about is that this movie was going to be a backdoor... It's going to be a backdoor a new Avengers, like, story, and then the Hulks are going to be that. I'm going to assume that Mark Ruffalo is probably going to be in this movie, and now you're probably going to have Tatiana Maslany in this movie. Like,
and you're adding Harrison Ford.
And you're going to add Harrison Ford as, like, he's not going to be the villain, but he's going to be...
in it.
He's going to be in it. It's going to be a big thing, so...
But they do this to Chris Evans?
No. Like, they made it so much of a point in Civil War to be like, this isn't an Avengers 2.5. Like, it's going to be a story about Captain America versus Iron Man, and more importantly, like... how the world deals with these superheroes, but who was the first of all of them? It was Captain America, and him also dealing with with the fallout of, you know, his best friend being frozen and coming back. So yeah, I feel a little bad for Anthony Mackie. Obviously, we don't know what this story is going to look like, but it feels like this Hulk thing is going to be the new... I think I told you, like, what the Hydra arc was from Winter Soldier on in the MCU is what's feeling like this Hulk storyline is going to be. Like, everybody's going to try to get their hands on that Hulk, that Hulk serum.
The She-Hulk finale touched upon that a little bit.
Oh, that jogs my memory and gives me new theory to what that last episode was about, like... I don't want to go into spoilers just yet, but, like, the thing she did, and then the point you made to me, like, if in the real MCU timeline the other thing happened, that would be kind of interesting. So the thing did happen, and then people do have their hands on that.
Yeah.
William Hurt being one of them.
Now Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford's in a Marvel movie.
What's happening?
They have Kate Blanchett. Kate Blanchett's probably going to get an Oscar this year.
I know, but it's different. Because Harrison Ford hates everything.
If they get Clint Eastwood, it's over.
Oh, man. They dig him up.
Who would he play?
Clint Eastwood?
Yeah.
I don't freaking know.
Who knows?
Wow, Harrison Ford. Good on you, man.
Good on you.
I'm stunned. Mm-hmm. Legitimately stunned. Because this is a guy that I would never have thought would touch another fandom movie within.
No, absolutely not. And Blade Runner's such, like, especially 2049 is, like, that's a huge cult classic, so...
Yeah, it's not, like... I don't know, man. We gotta move on because I just can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, the Yankees are gonna start soon. We gotta move on.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's talk about She-Hulk then because it's time.
It's time.
So we got 9 episodes of this Disney Plus series.
Mm-hmm.
She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. We've talked sporadically over the last couple weeks about how brilliant Tatiana Maslany is.
Oh yeah, she's by far the best part about this show. She's charismatic, she's funny. You could tell she's having a lot of fun, but it's what's cool about it. She doesn't get overstated as like, you know how people like, you know who I think about with this? It's Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight. They wanted him to see him like just be Moon Knight so much that I think some people were taken away by like how good Oscar Isaac himself was in that show, being two different people. So I think for this, like, her as just Jennifer Walters is just so fun. Like,
which is an interesting point, considering the kind of the overall theme of the show.
Yeah, but it's like how good she was as Jennifer Walters. Like that's like her role now. Like she truthfully, it's not like she is She-Hulk, but like she truthfully is Jennifer Walters. Just like some of these other characters are like, they're both like, you know, Chris Evans was Captain America and Steve Rogers. Like Tony Stark is Iron Man and he's Tony Stark, or Robert Downey Jr. But Tatiana Maslany, she's truthfully just Jen Walters.
Yeah. Yeah, she's incredible in this.
I see what you did there.
It's, you know, you talked about how the side characters in this are kind of one note, and she's really not. And I do think that's in some aspects a design choice, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's essentially a one woman show is what this is. Like, it's all from her eyes, her perspective, her narration.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's great that she kind of really, and she does go on somewhat of a hero's journey in this.
Yeah, and I mean, I talked about it with the Daredevil episode, and that was the one I think it needed. I think where it hurts me a little bit is like 2 through 7, but at the same time, I can't hold as much credibility for that because she kept saying it throughout the whole. This isn't a superhero show. This is a lawyer show. Like I'm not a superhero. I'm a lawyer. But obviously, if she's going to be an Avenger at some point, you do need to have her. And that's why I think Daredevil specifically was the perfect character to have her be like the call to action. And then Wong kind of bridged it a little bit in 3 and 4. Like, hey, like you do need to help. Like you just can't help but not help. Like Bruce started it, Wong carried it over, and then once it hit Daredevil, that's when it like really came to fruition. Was just like, you can't help but run away from this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that they subletted all these kind of cameo characters to have her at different flag points of her arc, right? So you had Bruce in the introductory phase when she gets her powers. You know, there's the car accident, their blood mixes, boom, she's a Hulk. Great, good. I'm glad that they kept the origin mercifully brief to just that first episode. It was a little wonky how they did it, where she was like, I'm She-Hulk, and now here's a flashback. But I get it. Like that's the character. That's the show. So, and then you have, you know, Bruce kind of training her, being like, you're gonna have to do this, and she's like, I'm not doing it. And then you have Wong shows up, and then there's like a threat that exists outside of the world, essentially. And he's like, look, you're here, you have powers, like you kind of have to help.
Yeah, it's like the 3-pronged, like Bruce was much of like you have the curse of being the Hulk, so that's going to come with something. Wong was just like, there's threats outside of us that you have no choice but to have to deal with being a Hulk. And then there was the Daredevil, which is kind of like, you know, the last piece of it was just like the hero, like the secret identity, like going out and like vigilantism and like helping the little guy.
Well, he says it perfectly to her. I mean, there's no way we can say it better than he said it when he said, like, you know, Jen Walters can help people inside the law, and when the law fails, that's where She-Hulk can step in. I think that's he couldn't have said it any better.
He's so incredible, just as the character as a whole. He understands it so well. So we got the Fast and Furious. We'll save that. We'll say that. Well, because the finale is its own beast. We should have saved the finale for its own episode. Yeah. So obviously, you said you start out with Jen. She gets infected. She gets the transfusion. It's over. She doesn't have to get shot this time. Thanks, Marvel, for not just having her just be, you know, gunned down in the streets to get a blood transfusion. So yeah, she starts, and a lot of the first 2 episodes is the struggle of being a woman and trying to, you know, navigate her life. Just navigate her life. And now she has to be a Hulk because she is right. Like, the thing she does is going to be much more scrutinized than what Hulk ever does. I mean, Hulk was rampaging through multiple cities, but now he's a hero just because he was there during Endgame. But whatever she does, it's like, I think that is a decent aspect of the show, is like, whenever she talks about like whenever she's doing an interview, the first question that anybody responds to her is like, "What are you wearing?" Or like, "What's your makeup routine?"
And that's
like,
real.
It's real.
Like if you've ever
real.
watched any kind of red carpet events of or whatever the case is with these superhero movies, the male stars are asked very different questions than their female counterparts, and people can whine and complain all they want about being force-fed, quote unquote, these narratives, but the reason you think it's force-fed is because you've never noticed it, or if you've noticed it, you haven't certainly cared about it before, and you're part of the problem. Ultimately, like, I hate to be blunt about it, but that's basically what the show is telling you. Like, if you're quote unquote offended by certain aspects of the show, it's because you're the problem. Like, you're the perpetrator of one or more of these actions that the show is commentating on. You know what I mean? At the end, like, I wasn't offended by any of this. I found it quite, refreshing and interesting that the show decided to tackle these things head on and took a character that can commentate on these issues and make it make sense too, because she is hyper aware of the social kind of outcry of certain things. Like, she's aware of all that, so to have her and the show by and large commentate on it, I think is really good, and I don't think it should be knocked for that, because it's the same. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of, like, it's the same complaints people had with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, dealing with the race stuff in that show. People had problems with that because they felt like they were being force-fed a narrative when the reason you feel that way is because you're propagating these similar issues. So, I thought that was really smart, the way this show did that. Yeah,
and I'm not acquitting these writers of having no wrongdoing, because this show's not perfect.
No.
I have some gripes, and I mean, you jumped the gun for me a bit, and my major issue with this show is your side characters. So there's this thing that you talk about in terms of writing. It's stakes, the stakes you have. So even you look at some no harm, no foul shows, there still are stakes for even like situational comedies. Like, there still are some stakes. Like, this feels one of the bigger things I have an issue with is I feel like this show doesn't really have any stakes, but the time it takes the stakes to the next level is in the last piece of the season. Like, that's why 2 through 7 just felt or 3 through 7 felt a little jumbled for me, because it only took until 8 to finally deal with a little bit of stakes. But I mean, we were talking about it, like, 8 was the Daredevil episode, but the thing that happened at the end of that episode was really, like, heartbreaking.
With her getting, basically outed, like, her sex life outed, and she's being, basically revenge porn, essentially, is what happens.
And again, a thing that women have to deal with that men don't have to deal with. Like, it's the backlash that men and women would have to deal with if the same thing were happening to them. Like, for men, it would be like, good job. But, like, for a woman, it's like, your career might be over.
It was in that moment where they perfectly melded the idea that she talked about in the first episode, where Bruce, is like, you're going to have to control your rage. And she's like, I do that every day. Because if I exude rage, it means I'm being catty, or I'm being like, and then she justifiably exudes that rage in that moment. And what happens? She gets locked up.
And to me, that wasn't even like the Hulk coming out. I just think it's how a lot of people would just respond simply. I do have a theory on, like, why I think her and Bruce are different. And the big thing for me is I think Bruce is like, he's like Mark Spector. Like, I think he has multiple personality disorder, versus Jen is just, that's why Jen's just Jen. Like, Harrison Ford, when he inevitably becomes Red Hulk, he's just gonna be Red Hulk. Like, Todd, like, when he hulks out at the end, like, he was just
Todd.
Todd. Wakanda forever.
Todd.
But yeah, I rewatched the whole series this morning because it doesn't take long. It's like, it's probably like I think a 4-hour watch to watch the whole thing. I 100%, I think it's like, in my mind, it's like, feels confirmed that, like, him and the Hulk persona and, like, Bruce are like, the Hulk is like what why am I not thinking of what Stephen Grant is to Mark Spector? Like, the Hulk is like the persona he used to protect himself, versus Bruce Banner's the actual version of him. That's why, like, he was so surprised. He's like, why don't you have another person with you? I don't think it's because of, like, a Hulk thing. I think it's because of a Bruce Banner thing that happened to him.
Yeah, I think that's totally spot on. And what else is what else happens in this?
So, I mean, the first 2 episodes, I don't love to harp on the stuff I didn't love, but, like, now that everything's kind of fresh in my mind, the first 2 episodes do feel, like, not drastically different, but you can feel like there's, like, this grandeur in the first 2, and then it kind of dips off into, like, you know, your cruising altitude, and 3 through 7.
That's
like,
fair, yeah.
Even down to, like, you know, some of the detailing, like, even down to, like, some of the music choices, like, it does feel a bit different. Like, that does feel like an MCU show versus, like, then it gets... I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or a bad thing, but for me, I didn't love it too much, like, just because it felt so, like, cracked from the other...
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked
aspect.
about this when we talked about Werewolf by Night last week. Like, what happens with almost all of these shows is, and maybe, you know, with this, maybe it's a little more pronounced because of just the overall kind of story, but... some of these episodes get very wheel spinny.
Yeah.
And, you know, not a lot is going on because, you know, we're not really advancing plot. We're just kind of just like sitting with these characters for a bit, and that can be fun and that can be enjoyable, but it does feel very wheel spinny in a way that, like we talked about Werewolf by Night, something was always happening because you're packing this whole story and introducing these characters into just an hour and then you're moving on to the next thing.
Right.
So like with She-Hulk, the episodes were still short, which... You know, to be fair, like we said, it's a sitcom at the end of the day, and it's going to be like those early episodes of WandaVision that were based on the sitcoms were like 20 minutes.
Right, yeah, like that. But the thing for me is, I can excuse that because there were stakes and there was this aura behind it too. And I mean, it does help because that was the first thing that we saw outside of, you know, Endgame, and I mean, you tack on Spider-Man Far From Home, but not counting that, like that was the first Avengers thing we were seeing after that. So it was just like, the heck is going on? Like this, there was something about that versus this is a situation. It is like a sitcom where it's like week in, week out, something happens, but then. The thing for me is like, I feel like they were attempting to do something, but then they were just like, who cares? We are just a sitcom, so we're not going to follow through. Like, it got to the point where like the inhibitor thing at the end, like Bruce just said like he broke his inhibitor and that's just like, it's something they couldn't calibrate. And then magically by the end of the season, they just had an inhibitor for her to turn her powers off. I was just like, that's the thing she wanted in the, like, where did they even get that from? Like, that was one of those things I was just like, I feel like they focus so much on the thing that happens in the finale, and like because I heard that was the finale was supposed to be the first half of that episode, and then they redid it to do the second half of the episode. But you could tell like some aspects. I hate to call it lazy, but I think you know, they were feeling themselves a little bit, and they were like, this is the workaround for like, you know, going intricate on some of our writing is to do some things like that.
Yeah, and you know the character and the mythos around the character is a great excuse to kind of just like screw around with a couple things.
Yep.
And maybe not all of it lands, but you can afford to do that because, you know, not to say that the show, I would say the show out of all the other shows had generally lower expectations because it definitely felt lower stakes than the other shows. So you can afford to kind of mess around a little bit and try some techniques, then maybe not all of them land, which again, no harm, no foul. Like at the end of the day, like people that are so enraged by what took place in the show or didn't take place, like, not everything is going to be, you know, to borrow your language from last week, not everything is going to be an Avengers level threat.
Right.
Like, it's not going to, like I said when we talked about the show, like, non-spoilery, like, I could justifiably see this show being one of the only series that goes multiple seasons because it's so low stakes, and you can just have this kind of, not villain of the week, but hero of the week that kind of, like, rolls on in and, like, has, like, a case for her to tackle.
Right, and more important, like, a case of the week, which the show was doing. Like, I think what happened was, they kind of got away from that a little bit, and what I think is this show, if it does go multiple seasons, what it's going to evolve into is just like more notable characters being the case, like her actually defending like these super beings that she knows versus like Mr. Immortal shows up and Elf from New Asgard shows up. Like, I think this could divulge into like her defending, like, you know, I don't know who do we got out there that would need some legal like the Punisher one, like, you know, like it could be somebody. Yeah, if you don't think that the Punisher would be there for anything, you're wrong. But no,
awesome.
So let's talk more plot, because I feel for us what's nice is like we talk about, you know, things that are good and we talk about things that are bad, but let's talk about what is. And this is what happens in this show. So we divulge in, you know, your case of the week. We get, what is episode 3? Episode 3 is the Abomination. It's the back half of the Abomination case. So 2 and 3 are the Abomination.
Tim Roth is back, everybody.
Tim Roth is back.
He's great.
Yeah, I think that's another character I actually enjoyed. And like, it was one line that kind of like, it it was like, that's a good piece of writing that they did. Like that one line, him talking about like, I thought I was going to be Captain America, like not Bruce Banner, not Steve Rogers. Like I was supposed to be the next Captain America. Like I was supposed to be him. Like
I was hired to neutralize a threat.
Yep. And that's all I did. Like, that just perspective is a heck of a thing. Like, changing that perspective, like,
especially since, I mean, in The Incredible Hulk, that guy is incredibly one note.
Yeah. And not for nothing. Yeah, he is one note, sure. Not for nothing. The way that Bruce Banner was portrayed in that movie, like, or the Hulk specifically, like, he is a threat from their eyes, he was attacking a college. Like, he was attacking Harlem. Like, it
just doesn't come across in that movie because Blonsky is so kind of like, yes, sir, no, sir.
He's very early MCU. And then
William Hurt is
MCU.
like, stop him at all costs. Like, it feels like William Hurt has something personal against Banner.
He does. He does. Personal against Banner,
it never, like, you never get that nuance that Abomination is explaining in this from that movie. So it was nice that he got to come back, and I gotta say that the therapy episode was one of my favorite episodes of the whole show.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm not gonna, obviously you can't count that Daredevil episode. I think my favorite episode might be the Madison episode. That was just, again, like another case of the week fun and like just exploring the ways, and it's not even because of Wong, like just the other things. Like I think that was probably some of my favorite comedy throughout the whole season, even outside of Madison. Some of like the little side comments from people I thought was really well done. Like that was a pretty fun episode. But outside of that, like the wedding episode, I mean, another big character that just you get nothing from is Titanian. I think that's a little unfortunate, especially being a woman character as well. Like that hurts a little bit that it really is just there to be there. Like absolutely nothing pays off from her storyline. Like they fight at the wedding, but it doesn't really matter. Like, nothing comes of this.
Nothing.
Yeah. And
nothing at all.
You could have served me one line of dialogue and it would have been something. Threw me a bone, but there was just nothing that kind of surmises.
She literally shows up, like, crashing through a wall.
Right.
You're like, where did you come from?
Yeah. You know who the most frustrating character they're not one-dimensional, but they get nothing. I reverse that. They get nothing. They do a lot of stuff, but they're kind of one-dimensional in the way that their arc is. It's Nikki. I thought they were going to do more with Nikki, and they don't really. And that's your best friend character. I mean, you talk about like storytelling, like the side best friend character. A lot can come from that. Perspective can come from them. Obviously, for a lot of times you get a lot of comedy, which she provides, which is nice. But she doesn't. She's just the same the whole show. Like you can excuse that with Pug a little bit because Pug's not like. He's like in like the third tier of your characters. But for Nikki, you got to think that you might want to set her on an arc of any sort. Just give me anything, and they didn't give me anything for her.
Also, real quick, Josh Segarra's Pug, incredible.
I was just scrolling through TikTok earlier, and I saw somebody put like they put a compilation of him as Prometheus and like some of his, and it's so crazy because I'm waiting for it to happen. And he's just a good guy the whole time.
He's just a great guy.
He is a great guy.
He's a great number two to like have around. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed what he brought to that show.
Fun. Again, he's a no harm, no foul character, but Nikki is a harm and foul character because she is supposed to be like, the confidant for She-Hulk, which she is, but like herself doesn't evolve beyond her, which is kind of unfortunate.
And She-Hulk gets a ton of outside influence from people that aren't her best friend.
Right.
Like she gets advice from Daredevil, she gets advice from Hulk, she gets
from
advice
Blonsky.
from and it's real, and
from her parents.
From her parents, but it is a little. I mean, she gets a little bit of wisdom from I forget what the other lawyer that defends her in that one episode is, but in a show that is so kind of female empowered. A lot of the wisdom that gets imparted on her comes from male characters. Yeah. Which is a little kind of odd.
I think they could have went a little farther with Natalie Book's character as well. Like, I think I could have gotten a little bit more, because even if they wanted to do the thing where it's cliche and she's like, evil, or she's just against Jen because she's against Jen, like, that still can lend a little bit. I think they didn't do that because Titania was already there, but if they did that, it would have been like Titania's there for She-Hulk and Natalie's there for Jen. Like, that would have been a kind of cool dynamic to go on.
Yeah, I totally agree. So are we episode 4?
I think, yeah, so 4, it's the Wong's here, and this is where the cameo piece of the puzzle for the Nexus and the aura that surrounds the show comes. So she specifically says, this is not a cameo of the week type of show. And I mean, it's not for the most part.
No.
You just get Wong and Daredevil and Blonsky. And I think Blonsky was already in the show, so that one, I didn't count that one because he was like, it was announced from the gate.
He was built into, like,
show.
the fabric of the story, essentially.
Right. Wong and Daredevil were not. So Wong shows up, and like I said, this is the second piece of her hero's journey, is Wong being like, Miss Waltz, like, can you help me? Like, there's demons around. She's just like, I'm on a date. I don't care. And that's a She-Hulk character thing to do. Be like, sometimes I don't care about this stuff. Like, I'm just a woman in LA living my life. Like, I don't care about being.
And this is also where we get the aforementioned Madison. Patty Guggenheim put up unbelievable heat check minutes.
Yeah, she put up like she did what TJ Warren did in the bubble for the NBA. It was crazy.
Man, she just
social media took it over. Like,
when you talk about what's important with like characters like this who aren't in a thing for long or at all, when you understand the assignment,
and boy did she. Did she?
Good Lord. She was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
And that episode, like, you know, to your point, that episode was very funny. Yeah. I just think about, like, stupid little things, like in the courtroom.
Oh my God.
Even the lawyer's a magician?
Yeah, that was, of my rewatch, that was probably, besides the Daredevil episode, my most, like, enjoyable episode that I watched of that. Like, the case of the week was interesting, too, because it did beg this bigger question. And again, this is where I think multiple seasons of She-Hulk, like, the newer seasons could live, of, like, the different aspects of the MCU and like the legal side of some of this stuff, because Daredevil does talk about the Sokovia Accords, like, again, like, it's over, like, the Avengers saved the universe, and that's because the government didn't tell them to do something, they did something on their own. Like, just those things. So, like, the magic aspect, like, should we just have these people from Kamar-Taj, if they choose to leave, just be able to do these things, or should we stop them? Like, that's where I think She-Hulk, like, the legal stuff can live in. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's always great to see Wong. I'm unabashed Wong supporter, so I was like seeing Wong.
Much like I feel like everybody else became after this show came out. So
yeah. I mean, there's also a commentary on that, but he pops back up later in the season, which again I got a kick out of when she says, "Well, Wong's." I guess you already saw that Wong's back, and he's like having social media armor for the week.
Yeah, right. And then after this episode, this is where the show this is where it starts to fall.
Episode 5, you get her. She does battle with Titania in a courtroom.
Yep.
Like, legally.
Right.
That episode's fine. This is where we get the introduction of the designer.
Right.
Who I quite liked. Again, another
Luke
guy
Jacobson.
who totally understood the assignment.
Right, exactly. Who I think is going to serve as, like, the MCU's tailor for, like, your characters. If you're not getting it from Wakanda, Sam Wilson, you're getting it from Luke Jacobson if you're in the States.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Good.
Melvin Potter is in jail and a villain, I guess. So
then we get our wedding episode.
Yeah.
Episode 6.
I think this is probably, like, this is where it gets weak for me this season. It just, that whole backdrop of the wedding, and, like, I kind of like, and please, I hope this doesn't come off as I'm one of those people that were just like, where's No, I didn't care. I knew if he wasn't going to be in this to the last, who cares? I genuinely think this episode, again, it's just the stuff with Titania. Nothing comes of it for her character. Like, for the story itself, it is what it is, but for her character specifically, because that's where story comes from, through character, like, Titania is so just one-dimensional, like, and I kind of feel bad for Jamila Jamel, because obviously she seemed like she was having fun, but, like, nothing comes of her character beyond just
she's
showing
like Team
up.
Rocket.
Yeah, like,
she just shows up every episode and gets dealt with.
Yeah, like, that kind of stinks, man. Like,
it does.
I think the only thing I can see backing that up is her backstory with Doctor Doom is where it gets a little complicated to kind of do, like, adapt. So it is a little, like, difficult to kind of, you know, do the same thing, but just give me anything for her. She's just Kim Kardashian. What did she say? She's just, like, with low-level super strength?
Yeah. I did enjoy the joke at the beginning of this episode when she's like, when she does the meta commentary on like how inconvenient weddings are.
Right.
She's like, you might feel this is a weird time for this to happen this point of the season, and she's like, and you're right, because that's what weddings are.
Right.
And I'm like, that's true.
Yeah, a wedding on a Wednesday, Thursday, obviously. Also at that wedding you get introduced to Josh. Josh, you were the chosen one, Josh. Oh my gosh, is Josh Anakin and Daredevil's Luke?
Oh no.
He is Luke.
Don't do this.
It's happening.
Yeah, we get Josh. Definitely screwed her over. Mm-hmm. And again,
can I say the thing? I don't for those people, like, in the most unbelievable thing about this show, I think somebody made this joke, is like looking at Tatiana Maslany and being like, eh.
But, you know, and my counter to that is like, that's how guys like that always think. Mm-hmm. Like, they always think like they're hitting two steps ahead, like 2 notches above what they're actually hitting. Mm-hmm. And they always think, I mean, you got that in the finale, but like all these guys like think they're making some big grand statement when really they're just losers at the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe you should put all this effort into a job or something.
Yeah, for real, guys. Then we get to one of my personal favorite episodes, the therapy episode, the retreat episode, because it was just nice.
It is just, again, so this is where another piece where I think the show can live. Like, you have all these like D and E list comic characters showing up. Yes. So I have a DC and a Marvel encyclopedia. Like, I got the newer ones once we started this, which is pretty cool. So I was just flipping through and then seeing some of these characters like Man Bull. He just shows up and is just like a regular guy, and I love that. Like, regular people doing regular things is also kind of fun.
We got our second swashbuckling swordsman. Spanish character.
He has to fight the swordsman, right? Or team up with the swordsman. Do it in like Secret Wars, like when inevitably the big battle happens. That'll be fun.
So that was cool. And then I just liked the tone of this episode. Like, I thought it was very lighthearted. I thought, it was cool that Jen like let her guard down. She was like, I'm having guy problems.
Right, and I think the backdrop of having all men be there too was interesting as well, because it's like
super supportive men.
Yeah, it's just like, because it's something that she's not used to. So that was a nice breath of fresh air.
Because all I saw, the criticism of the show were like, every guy in this is presented as like a monster. I'm like, did you watch the therapy episode?
Yeah.
Did you meet Pug?
Yeah, like, Emil. They went as far as like he's truthfully reformed.
Yeah, and they're like, they're all good guys. They're all giving her advice.
Right. Because you're waiting for the flip. You're waiting for something to happen.
That's why it's so cool to have like these quote unquote villains like being the ones to walk, because you're thinking like, are they gonna like double cross her? Nah, they were just giving her good relationship advice. They're like, what do you mean you double texted him? Like,
maybe don't do that. It's just like, if Josh isn't gonna text you, then you shouldn't worry about Josh.
It was so good. I really enjoyed that episode a lot. It was just fun. That was the episode where Pug and Nikki went on their little adventure.
No, that was
5. Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, that was a fun little, because they were trying to find Jen clothes.
Yeah, and then we talked at length last week about the Daredevil episode.
Yeah, it's the best. It's not because he's in here. It just genuinely is. I forget who the writer of that episode, but the writer of the Daredevil episode is a comic writer too. Like, it was the best episode of the season. It finally set her on the last piece of her hero's journey that she needed, in my opinion. And their dynamic is so incredible. Like, of all the guys that she was meeting, like, you have your pediatric surgeon guy that was just like, he's a great guy, but he only liked She-Hulk. Then you get Josh, who was in it for nefarious reasons, and like, Matt is the perfect partner, because he understands her, he understands her business, but he's not like, what's that guy from earlier in the season that worked with her at the DA's office?
Oh yeah,
the Meg Stallion episode. Oh yeah. Wait, did we wait from before to talk about the controversy? Because that was the first big piece of controversy from the show. She-Hulk had fun with
Meg the Stallion.
Yeah.
Because people were freaking out, because they were like, Meg the Stallion's been cast in the MCU, and people were like, oh my god, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And she was just Meg the Stallion.
Yeah, which is great. And then,
which is perfect.
And then the thing happened, and then people... It's when people take like a really blurry frame from a movie and then put it against a really good frame from another movie and be like, this movie's bad and now this movie's great. I'm like, they did the same thing, because be like, remember when Iron Man blew up that tank? Now Meg Stallion and She-Hulk are twerking. I was just like, did Iron Man not joke every single second he was in the MCU? Like, was he not just joking around the whole time?
Guardians of the Galaxy ended with
a dance off, and you guys and everybody loved it. Like, again, this is a no harm, no foul. Like,
it was a post-credit scene also.
Right. It didn't matter to anything.
No.
Remember when Iron Man 3 ended with a therapy session?
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mark Ruffalo was there. That was crazy.
I'm Mark Ruffalo. I'm here to cash this check.
Yeah, I'm Mark Ruffalo from Zodiac. I'm also Robert Downey Jr. from Zodiac. So yeah, they work so well together. They're so good. Like, incredible. Shut up about the flips, because go pick up a Daredevil comic and he's flipping out of his mind.
Leapfrog was also in this.
Leapfrog was funny. He was Ribbit and Rip It.
And Ribbit and Rip It is fantastic.
All of the way they did it, he's just some like trust fund baby. And again, that's where the MCU sits out. Like, now people are going to try to do these things. Like, people are going to try to be heroes.
And I just, like I said, it just felt like Charlie Cox was having so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was, yeah. Yeah, he's back. Yeah. He's back.
Yeah, and then, man, so
here we go.
The finale. Man, I watched this after you, like several hours after you, and you're like, dude.
Yeah, I saw you, and what was the first thing I said when I saw you?
You're just like, like that finale is crazy. And I'm like, how crazy could it be?
Yeah, I wasn't like the Loki finale is bonkers in my opinion. Like that was a wild finale, and like
this is also bonkers.
In a conceptual way of thinking. This is way crazier.
I couldn't believe it. I genuinely could not believe what transpired in this finale. Yeah. So, obviously, we talked about the end of episode 8, this big emotional moment for Jen. She wakes up, she's in a prison, and then it's basically all now like, how are we going to get this SOB? Mm-hmm. They do the Avengers Endgame, Captain America, let's go get this son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. Basically, is what they feel about Todd. And so, you know, that's their mission. Find out, you know, who the Hulk King is, quote unquote, like the leader of this 4chan group, essentially. Yeah,
this episode's also really cool homage to just the Hulk as a character.
Well, they do the Incredible Hulk 1970s intro.
Right, yeah, it's really great, and they do it like beat for beat. It's just like I love that little, and then they do like little twists in there where it's just like she was she's a Hulk sometimes, and then she also has to deal with online trolls on like the 1970s computer. Like that's fun.
Savage She-Hulk.
Yep.
Yeah.
So really homage to the 80s She-Hulk comics. So that was fun, and the 70s show. You get into the episode and you're like, okay, it's happening. They're doing it. They're doing what all of these shows outside of Loki did. Every single last one of them, they're doing it.
Yeah, so she goes to see Blonsky, basically, because she's like, you know, maybe he can help with this.
Well, she's trying to get in contact with Bruce, because she's just like, well, the big thing is she's now barred from becoming She-Hulk. She's not allowed to turn into She-Hulk anymore.
Because we should mention, Bruce has gone to Sakaar.
Yeah.
From episode 1.
Why?
You'll find out
why.
Find
out next
Here's
week.
why. So she wants to get in contact with Bruce to like kind of get him to help yada yada with all this. So they go to the little retreat thing and they're like, where's Blonsky? We don't know. We can't find him. He's doing a speaking engagement. What is the speaking engagement, you might ask? It's for the incel group.
Mm-hmm. The intelligentsia. And nerds who thought people were showing up in this show, up yours, woke moralists. They're not. You're not getting the leader. You got nobody.
Yep, you got Todd.
It's just Todd.
And
when Pug shows up, you see, this is why Pug's a great guy. He's just like, don't be gross. He said, I can't be gross. It sucks.
He's like, I hate these guys.
Yeah.
I'm like,
There's a Lady Thor joke where he's just like, and I don't hate her because she's a female. I hate her because she sucks.
Oh man, you know, and people think that's like they're being force fed a narrative, but. You've seen it.
You go on Twitter. They literally had in episode 3 the Twitter itself like thing happen.
Yeah, and it happens. It happens. Mm-hmm. And if you're complaining about it, you've probably said those things. So, yeah. And, they're just like, whatever happened to, like, strong male characters, yada, yada, yada.
That earn their powers.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hilarious. And then, plot twist, Blonsky's doing the speaking engagement.
You know why that's hilarious? Because in what way, shape, or form did Bruce Banner earn being he's a genetic experiment gone wrong. He didn't earn crap.
Steve Rogers didn't really earn the super soldier serum.
Thor was just born. I know he wields Mjolnir, but yeah. Like, Tony Stark is a billionaire. Ant-Man is just a guy that robs people. I'm being a little too coy about it, but you see how stupid this is? And then there's genuinely some people that probably think this.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Blonsky is doing the speaking engagement. Did not, as the Abomination.
Yeah, and it's not because he's with them.
He got hired.
He just got hired, that's it. And he's in it for the money.
Yeah.
Because he has 7 soulmates now.
And then, so Jen pulls up at this thing because she's trying to find Blonsky, and she finds him. She's like, what are you doing here? Then she sees Todd, and Todd's like, yes, it's me. I'm the villain. I wanted your powers, basically. So the whole serum thing comes to roost here. Yep. Todd injects himself, becomes a Hulk, and then it's on.
It's on. So Todd's hulking out. He's like, get her. They all go out. Blonsky's protecting her. And then boom, Hulk shows up. Bruce is back. Bruce sees Jen being held by the Abomination, and he's just like, all right, well, now it's on. Rematch. It's back on. Titania breaks through the doors, and I'm like, what is Titania doing? Titania says, and that's where I was just like, all right, she's right. Like, this has nothing to do with anything. Like, why is Titania there for anything?
Yeah, so Jen immediately hits the pause button, essentially, on the plot. She's like, is any of this making any sense to you guys? And we're like, no, Jen, it's not. So then my Disney Plus went out.
Yeah, my Disney Plus subscription got canceled because I have lost my job.
Or so I thought.
I'm rehired.
Because we go to the Disney Plus home screen. and She-Hulk blasts through the panel of the Disney Plus screen.
So she kicks it open and she's just like, all right, I gotta fix this. This is a dumb finale.
Did you see Simu Liu's tweet about that, by the way?
I love Simu Liu. You saw he was on Celebrity Jeopardy the other day, and then they said the thing about the Philippines, and he's just like, what do you mean by that?
Oh man, yeah. So she goes to the Marvel Assembled, like the behind the scenes Disney Plus show, and she ends up in the real world, presumably.
Yep.
Man, this thing is just insanity. So
she walks into the writer's room.
Yep.
With the main, I think Jessica Gal, the main She-Hulk writer, a couple of them are there. It's just like, she's just like, the heck is going on? Like, none of this makes sense. And she's just like, you guys came up with this idea? And they were like, yeah.
None of this makes sense. None of it's earned.
Yeah, so like, you guys came up with this super original idea to give the blood of myself to my main villain? They're like, maybe. She's just like, I've had it with you idiots. I'm storming off. And then she's just like, I gotta go find the guy in charge. And who's in charge?
Kevin.
We'll never give Kevin up. And we're like, oh.
Oh, wait a second.
Is he gonna do it? So she goes into, the famous, like, hall that looks like the Marvel Galaxy. She goes in there, and then I think the guy that's is literally the guy that's always at their front desk, and then he has her sign an NDA. Hilarious. And then he just hits the red button, and she's just like, why did you hit the button? She's just like, everybody still has to sign an NDA. Regardless if you're getting arrested, you gotta sign it. She does the Black Widow in the hallway, Daredevil in the hallway. She just beats up a bunch of wait, are they goons or are they henchmen?
Neither. They're just Marvel Studios security.
They're henchmen, right?
I guess.
Because henchmen do it for the cause. They're doing it for the cause. Goons are there for the paycheck.
You could argue those guys are there for the paycheck. They work at Marvel Studios.
They're goonmen.
Yeah, then she gets into the room where Kevin is.
Yeah, so she's in this room and it's just basically it's like a black room with 100 screens, and it's just a sizzle reel of the MCU.
It's the Matrix room.
Right.
The Matrix scene.
And then this thing drops down and it's Kevin. It's Kevin. What does Kevin stand for?
I can't remember for the life of me. And then he's got a ball cap on.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the lens. It's like the lens hood, but it's supposed to be a ball. It's supposed to be a baseball cap. And then he's just like, I'm here because I'm the one that does this. I'm the man in this piece.
Yeah, I'm conglomerating into an acronym, and then into an algorithm, and pump out these shows and everything.
Yeah, at near perfect accuracy. And she's just like, I don't think everybody thinks that. And he's like, who's saying that?
Who said that?
Who said that?
You take that back right now.
Yeah. So she's just like, none of this, can I just do my own finale? And he's like, okay, I'll entertain this. What do you have in mind? Well, first of all, let's not have Todd turn into a Hulk. That's just stupid. Let's change the time to day, because why not?
Because everything happens at night.
Yeah, all the big finales happen at night. We're changing it to day. WandaVision's just like, what am I, chopped liver? That was during the day. What else happens?
Get rid of Bruce.
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense.
Yeah, why would Bruce just show up? Because he wasn't showing up because he was away.
And we're not going to settle this with a big fight. We're going to settle it in the courtroom.
Right, like she says, like,
it's a legal comedy.
She gives her closing argument, basically, to the one above all.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, he's like, I need... transform back into She-Hulk, but do it off screen,
right? Because
you're very expensive, and we're moving our visual effects to another property. And then the Wakanda song, like, beat plays, the Wakanda drums. Yeah.
She's like, can you have Daredevil back? Just throw him in there.
Oh, and then she goes, what about the X-Men?
Yeah. She winks at the screen. She's just like, what about the X-Men?
He's like, I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
And then, she wants to have Daredevil come back, stop having daddy issues for every hero.
Mm-hmm. She sits down, and he's just like, oh, you're going to sit? Okay. Guess we're going to go through this real quick.
Talks about season 2, and then he's like, we'll see. And then he goes, we'll talk about it for the feature. And she goes, really? He goes, no.
And he's just like, and then when she says the Bruce line, she's just like, take Bruce out. And then he's just like, well, Bruce is we need to set Bruce up. We need to like figure out what he was doing on Sakaar to get ready for the movie. And then we're like, ooh, yeah, we're going to get a World War Hulk movie.
Yes. And she leaves. That's essentially what happens. So they hand Todd over to the police. Yeah. They're going to handle that in court. Blonsky's going back to jail.
But he
understands because that was one of her things too. Like Blonsky needs to, if he's going to turn into the Abomination, he needs to have some type of penance for it instead of just doing it.
Daredevil literally falls out of the sky. And he says the most like video game NPC, I'm here to help. And that's it. And she's so just like, it's all over, Daredevil, it's fine.
He's like, I missed it?
Ah, crap. That was it.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Him just falling literally like out of the sky.
And then the show divulges into Fast and Furious.
Yeah, we get a Fast and Furious family cookout.
It's crazy.
That's amazing. Daredevil, that's deliberate, right?
Yeah, it had to have been.
It had to have been.
It had to have been. Daredevil's there as the new boyfriend.
Yep.
Keep them. What I say, I think keep them together because if you break them up, if you choose to break them up or keep them together, that's such an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're so good together. So he's the new boyfriend. He's got his own practice, but Jennifer's aunt's just like, so it means you don't make a lot of money because you're in Hell's Kitchen, right? Her other aunt's just like ready to
do pro bono work.
Yeah.
Also.
Oh, so you're broke. Man.
Oh man. Tough. Poor Matt.
Then Hulk actually shows up.
Yes.
And then I either need a dun 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 or I need a drum roll.
I'll give you a dun dun dun.
He's got a son.
Surprise,
it's Scar.
Surprise, motherfuckers.
It's Scar. You're Scar from Marvel Comics, aren't you? So Scar's there.
Rocking a heck of a haircut.
The hairline's pushed back like a barber that you didn't pay.
Hey man, you remember the barber on Sakaar? It was Stan Lee.
It was Stan Lee, yeah.
With several mechanical arms.
Yeah. He couldn't have been good.
Or he got snapped in the middle of the haircut.
That would have been even funnier if that's the case.
Which was the theory on Hawkeye's haircut in Endgame.
That was a choice. That's a choice.
So Hulk has a son, accurately predicted by you in when we talked about the show from the beginning. That we got Scar in the MCU.
Yeah. So this Hulk storyline, I think so I guess we can give our last thoughts on the show.
I liked it quite a bit. Not my favorite, not my least favorite. It was right in the middle for me. I thought it was, for what it was, I thought it was perfectly acceptable. I would love to see more of this as, just like a sitcom, like a regular sitcom that I could sit down with every week and just a random hero or villain walks in and She-Hulk has to deal with it with some more fourth wall breaking hijinks.
Yeah.
And then, the finale piece of it, it was really ambitious.
Extremely ambitious, yeah.
It was. So the meta commentary, and this is something I talked to you about before we hopped on, the meta commentary for me works, but only if Marvel is willing to address the criticisms that they're poking fun at.
Right.
Particularly as it comes to like the visual effects crunches that we've talked about in the past. If you're willing to make jokes about it, make efforts to fix it. So if that is the plan, and maybe with these delays that we talked about earlier, maybe that is kind of the plan that,
because it was super close when they did that, when they had the finale and then when the delays happened.
Like, hey, maybe we are kind of stretching ourselves a bit too thin. Maybe we're pumping these out a bit too fast and we're cutting some corners and hopefully they are going to. So that would be my only thing as far as like the meta commentary is concerned. Like, it's fine to poke fun at it, but if you're just going to keep going the same route that caused the commentary to come up in the first place, then that makes it in poor taste, in my opinion. So hopefully, they're using they use that finale as a vehicle to say, hey, we hear you and we're going to address the criticisms, appropriately, and I think Wakanda Forever is kind of maybe an example of like, maybe Marvel's kind of not getting it back together, but like getting back to that like A-tier kind of level that we've come to expect from them over the last 5 or so years. So that'd be my only thing about the finale. Otherwise, I thought it was crazy. I thought it was insane. It went way further than I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
And overall, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, no, again, for me too. I think the show is fine. I still think I had, for you, what you said about, getting the visual effects artists some time to kind of, actually fix the problem, I think is the same thing for a little aspects of the writing. Like I said, the character work. If you're going to poke fun at it, like they were talking about it in there, like, I know that's something that I think that, I can't remember who it was. I know it was one of the She-Hulk writers. Like, they used to do that. Like, they would be like, oh, these writers are stupid and lazy. Like, that's the same thing they were doing in the finale. But then don't give me Titania if you're not going to do any, like, if you're just going to have her show up and do nothing. I just think, if you're going to poke fun at yourself and be like, these writers are stupid and you guys don't know how to write finales, then make a concerted effort to fix your finales and make sure that it isn't just punch 'em ups at the end. That's why I think that Loki season finale is near perfect for me, because it's this conceptual understanding of, this character that's not at like the Avengers level is like, how do you're not only like expanding your universe, you're evolving your universe with this, and you're backdoor introducing your new Thanos in like one of the most interesting ways I've ever seen to do it. So if you're going to do that, then you got to make sure that you're taking care of yourselves too. But no, the show is fun. As this week to week, like, up it, like, have this be like Law and Order, like, just week in, week out, give me another case week in, week out, preferably with her, because she stopped lawyering a lot in the back half of the season, which, because one thing about Daredevil, it's not only that he's lawyering in the courtroom, he's lawyering outside the courtroom a lot. Like, I felt like she stopped lawyering a lot outside of the courtroom too, and that's something that, adds to like the things she worked hard for as a character to get to as well. But yeah, season 2, I think you just find the right characters. Like, some of the characters worked, some of the characters didn't work in season 1. Find the right characters and just have them week in, week out if you're going to do this. And again, I think you just need to add a little bit more stakes. Like, it's just going to make people care a little bit more, and it doesn't need to be like Todd, this big intelligentsia conspiracy theory. Like, just add a little bit of stakes. Like, what you did at the end of episode 8 is a perfect example of that. Just do that for a little bit more of your characters around her too. Yeah, totally agree. And then there's the Hulk piece. Yeah, so of this, obviously the Harrison Ford stuff, kind of ramped this up a little bit, and then the Scar stuff on top of that ramped that up even further. So where do you think this is going to go? I mean, it's got to be some type of World War Hulk sitch going on here. Yeah, so which we talked about, a while back, that the Hulk thing that's happening in this show is not what you think. Like, they're not just casting him off and making him irrelevant and making him this goofy, jokey character. No. Like, there's something being brewed here. Right. And I think the Scar appearance at the end kind of leans in that direction. So yeah, that would be my guess. A big piece of that is, I wonder if Scar was already on Sakaar while Hulk was there. Like, I wonder if he had him when Thor showed up there. Like, that would have been a little interesting, because he was there for 2 years, and I know they said it, like, time works differently on Sakaar too. Like, it's not the same as time moving on Earth. So Scar might have aged up a while, like, since Hulk was gone. And another interesting piece somebody talked about is, like, that's not Bruce Banner's kid. Like, that's the Hulk's kid. Like, at least the persona wise, like, Bruce Banner probably has no knowledge of having this child, like, but the Hulk might have some knowledge of this child right now. So, that would be interesting. So, what better motivator than a child, to bring out, the Incredible Hulk back out? You get Harrison Ford, you're putting them with, this Captain America 4 New World Order storyline, you bring back Tim Roth as the Abomination I'm assuming he's probably going to be in the Thunderbolts, because I think I saw a report that said the Thunderbolts cast that they showed isn't going to be the end of the Thunderbolts. So I think to add, like, again, I think I talked about it with, like, I think the whole thing about the Thunderbolts is, like, the super soldier aspect of it. So, like, if you can't do the Captain America way of the super soldier, you got to do the Hulk version of the super soldier. So I wouldn't be surprised if they either do the World War Hulks thing with an S, where it's like everybody gets everybody gets hulked out. I would definitely like to see Betty Ross come back. I'm just spitballing a little bit, but that would be interesting for Mark Ruffalo as a character. Like, give him somebody that's not Natasha. That would be nice. Yes. And, like, expand upon that, because we got it a little bit more of Tim Roth's perspective, but give me a little bit more of everybody's perspective. Agreed. Yeah, like I said, overall, the show was perfectly fine. Had a lot of interesting ideas, touched upon a lot of issues that, particularly for women, that I felt did need to be addressed in this kind of sphere of this fandom where things can be so toxic and so poor for women in particular, people of color, all those things. Mm-hmm. So I think the show did handle those things very tactfully and very, very importantly. So I'd like to see more of that too. Can I put you on the spot? So Phase 4 TV is over. So we started with TV.
Oh, you want me to rank them?
Yep, because I have it right here. I already ranked them. So yeah,
the shows?
The shows.
Just the shows, right?
Yeah, you don't have to include What If.
Okay, so we're dealing with what? WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, She-Hulk, Hawkeye. Moon Knight. Is that it?
Did you said Loki, right?
Yep.
You said WandaVision?
Yep.
You said Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yep.
You said Miss Marvel?
Nope.
Yep.
That's the one. That's probably my favorite one, too. Dang it. All right, let me write this down real quick. So, I think I'm going to go Miss Marvel 1. Okay. I just really love that show. I'm a sucker for like a good young adult story. That's just my personal taste and preference. So I really love that show. I'm going to go Loki 2. I'm going to go WandaVision 3. I'm going to go Moon Knight 4, She-Hulk 5, Falcon and the Winter Soldier 6, Hawkeye last.
Our lists are pretty dang different.
If I'm just shotgunning it right now without like really thinking about it.
I put some thought into this morning after I finished it. So I still think Loki's the best. I think it's one of the best things that Marvel has done, period. And I will say on the record, when they first announced Loki, well, this was back when like they first said we're gonna do shows, and I was like, cool. And then they said Loki, and I'm like, why are we getting a Loki show? Like, who cares? And then they came out with like one. It's down to everything about this, like down to like the TV show making of this is just incredible. Like Natalie Holt's score is incredible. It's like this like vague kind of like, you know, it's just this weird score. It's really cool. Loki gets, in my opinion, I think him and probably Sam get the best character arcs out of all these shows. I take that back. I think him and Wanda get the best arcs out of all these shows. And yeah, what that show created is it's so interesting, that show, to me. Like,
switch She-Hulk and Falcon and the Winter Soldier for me.
Okay. That's fine. I'll take that. And number 2 is going to be for big reason for me. But yeah, I think Loki, it's incredible in my opinion. That finale is such like a landing stick for no action. It's like for the MCU, that's like just absolutely unheard of. And then, I mean, the addition of Jonathan Majors is great, but yeah, man, that show is incredible. I have Falcon and the Winter Soldier as my second favorite show. I
get it.
I don't know, man. Some of the things that people say, I don't see. Like, I remember when this show, just talking about like camera stuff, like when this show first came out, I was like, this show looks really good. Like, this show looks better than a lot of the shows that a lot of the stuff that we were getting. I was like, this show looks really good. John Walker's character is super interesting. And then this whole backdrop, and I think what people get misconstrued, it's like, it's very easy to say it's a show about race. It's that, but it's deeper than that. It's the idea of like, and that's why you had Isaiah Bradley. He's just like, I too had the same serum that Captain America had, but I was thrown in jail for the same thing which Captain America is the world's greatest hero for. Like, those aspects, like,
it's so potent.
There's some subtleties in that show that I love. That beginning of 5 where Bucky gets you know, his mind rewritten and gets the conditioning taken out. It's such a beautiful scene. Just down to the aspects of like the poetic justice of him being Uncle Sam, and like his training montage is well done. Like, the big thing I think for people that don't work is it's the Flag Smashers, but I don't think it's a story too much all about them specifically versus like that. And he says it like, this is what's going to happen if you guys don't do anything. Like, you're going to get more of her. You're going to get more radicals. Like, I'm with you guys, but you guys need to work with me a little bit more. Like, I think that show is pretty well done. Like, I guess episode 2 is where people, like 1 to 2 is where people have the gripe, but I don't know. Some of the dialogue I thought was strong. Like, yeah. I really enjoyed that show, man. That's a show I can go back and watch.
I totally get it.
And then again, like the end justice of him getting that suit made from Wakanda, which is again a nice bit of poetic justice. And just in terms of like the punch 'em up finales that you get, I think that's probably my favorite one of all of them out of all the shows.
That's fair.
Miss Marvel's my third favorite show. We already talked about it. That's I think the only 2 shows we didn't talk about, or I don't think we talked about Loki. I don't think we talked about the first 3. I think we started with Hawkeye.
Yep.
So yeah, Miss Marvel, we talked about it already. I think that show is special. I think that Aman Vellani is going to be an absolute star in the industry, and I don't know, just the aura of that show too. What the directors were able to do, it feels so good, like a young adult story. It's like it's one they got right. WandaVision's 4 for me. Again, it's once it got to like 5 to 7 is where it lost it a little bit, but I mean, conceptually it was the first one. You can't say enough things about Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany as those two characters. The introduction of Agatha Harkness, again, another dynamic that was interesting to not have, like, she was the villain, but it wasn't that simple. Like, it's just straight up not that simple. And then just that with the backdrop of Multiverse of Madness after you saw, I think helped that show a little bit too. Moon Knight's 5 for me. Again, it's what they talked about in She-Hulk, like, the finale and then the midpoints in the seasons are usually the weakest, but
got wheel spinny.
Yeah. Oscar Isaac himself just absolutely carries that show. And then episode 5 had everybody talking. I specifically remember 5 was just like insanity of he died. And I was like, excuse me? Like, is he gone forever? Like that was really cool. Hawkeye 6. I didn't love Hawkeye. I didn't love what they did with Kingpin. I'm not one of those people that hate it, like that are like, this is the worst thing they ever. No, absolutely not. But, it's just tough where I think the best episode out of that season is the Echo episode. It's like not an episode that's mainly focused on, on Kate and Clint, but I mean, Haley Steinfeld is a revelation as Kate Bishop. And I did like some of the stuff they did with Clint, like that scene where he's like, he can't hear his son on the phone. Like, that's what I'm talking about with She-Hulk. Like, I know this is a comedy, but sometimes comedies brings like some of your biggest drama pieces. Like, give me something like that for somebody else. And then I think She-Hulk is last for me. And it's not because I think it's like a horrible show. I want to stress, like, I would assume that it's the same way with both of our lists, that the margins between the numbers are very close. In some instances, like, things could easily be flipped around, and it's not like there's these massive drop-offs between each ranking. It's literally 7 pretty good to great shows that are just so happen to rank in some type of order. So I don't know if you've been tracking what I've been tracking, but yeah, I think you saw me, like, I think I looked up at one point, but I didn't.
I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna forego the what we're doing
does not
segment
matter.
for some late breaking news revolving the DC universe.
It's so crazy because look at God.
So a couple things have come out within the last
20 minutes
or so as it relates to DC. So James Gunn is apparently going to be working on an unknown mystery DC project or two, potentially.
Yeah. I don't think you don't let James Gunn get
that's
anything.
A great idea.
Yeah. Idea before you go for. What if he gets the Justice Society movie? That would be kind of cool, because if you want to keep him as, like, one of your pillars as like your movie makers, I think that would be kind of cool.
The Batmaniverse is quickly taking shape. Matt Reeves is spearheading apparently a series of movies focusing on Batman's rogues, including Scarecrow, Clayface, and Professor Pig.
The Professor Pig one's gonna be great.
What else is going on?
Wonder Woman 3.
Wonder Woman 3 is happening. The Flash 2 script is apparently done.
I have a thought on that, and I don't think Ezra Miller is going to be the Flash for that movie. I think it's going to be somebody completely different for that movie.
Doesn't sound like it.
Does it not?
No. I mean, doesn't sound like they're going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
The Aquaman writer David Leslie Johnson has done that script. They talk about The Rock doing a Black Adam vs Superman movie, and then I guess the big one is Henry Cavill is apparently going to be coming back to lead a new Superman movie.
Yes.
That will be ostensibly Man of Steel 2 and is currently looking for a writing team. So just a cavalcade of DC news.
Oh my gosh.
It definitely feels like they are riding this Black Adam momentum.
Did I underestimate The Rock?
Whatever momentum Black Adam is apparently gaining, DC seems to be capitalizing on, because this doesn't happen usually from them. They don't usually just do a Marvel-esque ambush of news.
So the Hollywood Reporter broke all of this, and obviously they're reputable. But I mean, we could just talk about it. I'm so happy.
Yeah, basically the thinking going around is that there's essentially a power vacuum at Warner Brothers, and particularly as it pertains to the DC branch of Warner Brothers, and everyone's kind of grabbing their share and trying to get off what they can. And like I said, I think it is partially attributed to the momentum that Black Adam's picked up probably in the last 2 weeks, I would say.
Right.
Between pre-release screenings and obviously the news that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
So it feels like they're capitalizing on that.
That's so crazy that we literally were just talking about it. Finally feels like they get some footing, and they're like, boy, were we listening.
Yeah.
They hit the button just for us.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I literally just watched Man of Steel yesterday, and it's just insane that it's finally happening. Like, we've already talked about it. I love that movie. I just do. I don't have any rhyme or reason for it. That movie is just incredibly special to me. And the fact that I'm getting to see Henry Cavill again, it just feels great. Like, he could be on his time, like, where everybody's getting it, like his Brandon Fraser, Andrew Garfield. This might be the time for him to come back and really take this character to what it truthfully could be in the movie aspect of it.
That's
and
what
that's
I'm
where he
excited
needed
for.
to thrive.
I think what we're going to get from potentially whatever iteration of him we're going to get now is going to be totally different than what we got in Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. I think they're really going to try and shoot for this tried and true Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow version of the character.
Ooh, who would you get to direct it? Because I have an idea of, I think somebody that would be really cool to direct it.
I don't know. What was your pick?
I would get Joseph Kosinski to try to direct this. I don't know if he'd step away from Tom Cruise for anything, but I feel like Joseph Kosinski to do something like this would be incredible. I wonder if his allegiance is specifically to Paramount at this point. But I could see him stepping away and being like, hey, me and Tom are we're gonna do this. We're gonna do the space movie. I don't think they're ever gonna touch Top Gun again. Neither do I hope they ever touch Top Gun again. But I think the way Joseph Kosinski's career is going, like, I can definitely see him throwing a superhero movie in there. And what better to do is like somebody that's got like a cult following in Henry Cavill with this Black Adam, train going full steam ahead. Like, this would be the perfect time for a director like that that's known to like give us the biggest blockbuster of the year, like, can helm, like, I don't care what anybody says, the single most notable superhero of all time, like, if he can helm his movie.
So, I was actually thinking someone that was Tom Cruise adjacent as well. Someone who has pitched a Superman movie in the past, and that would be Christopher McQuarrie.
I think that would be also really cool. I know Christopher McQuarrie's been spending a lot of time producing over directing, so obviously he's going to see through the Mission Impossible because he revitalized that franchise and then some, but that also would be a really good option. I mean, again, if you're to pitch a cool idea, I mean, maybe I wonder if you do something like Bizarro. I just know the TV Superman and Lois spent a lot of time on Bizarro. Supergirl spent a decent time on Bizarro Supergirl. So I wonder if you do something like that. Or, man, could you... It depends. Like, they could do the Kingdom Come thing that I talked about, like, have him be older. But now that it's Man of Steel 2, I think they're going to have him be, like, just wherever he takes off in Black Adam. What could they do?
Brainiac?
I think that's the natural progression, because you've done Doomsday, you've done Lex Luthor.
They did Doomsday.
They did do Doomsday.
Bastards.
Yeah, so Doomsday is... We've had Doomsday. I wonder if they...
It would have to be Brainiac, right?
But the thing I'm thinking about is, do you do Supergirl with that too?
Maybe.
This Flash movie is going to get really interesting in this, because it's so insane that this is the thing that's like making me question everything. Like, who plays the Flash is like a cataclysm that can affect everything. Because, like, say it is Grant Gustin that plays the Flash, what's to say that Melissa Benoist is not the one that plays Supergirl in that movie if they decide to go that route? Because Lois is pregnant at this point, right? They said it in the end of the Snyder Cut that Lois is pregnant.
Yeah.
They got options.
Plenty of options.
Yeah.
And,
you have 80 years to go off of. You've got options.
Yeah, and it's just, it like we said, it does feel like potentially they might be starting to figure something out over there.
I don't think you do... I think you do All-Star Superman for like a third movie. I think you hold that, like, because that's one of the most special stories ever told in comics.
Because this doesn't feel like a one-off.
Oh, absolutely not. No, this I think he's back. I think he's back.
That's what this feels like, and we might have The Rock to thank for that.
If I don't know how, or if they find a way to get Ben Affleck back, and like, what you got to do a couple things. You probably got to apologize for the idea that Michael Keaton's going to take over for him. That's 1A. You gotta maybe apologize for that.
Yeah.
If they find a way to get Ben back on board,
He's gonna be an Aquaman.
He's gonna be an Aquaman. I could maybe like I don't think they would do a World's Finest movie because I think this is gonna be like quote unquote what Russell Crowe said, like his time in the sun. Like this is gonna be like his coming out party to be like. I think it is going to be a blend of that Man of Steel, like him coming into being like, you know, that's why I love the fact that movie's not called Superman, it's called Man of Steel, because it's like, he's not Superman yet, like, but he is the Man of Steel, like, he is this, and then, you know, Batman vs. Superman was him, like, dealing with, like, it's the moral implications of being Superman, like, this is what needs to be Superman himself, like, the guy that saves the cat out of the tree, the guy that, you know, stops the bus in front of the kids, like.
I would love that.
Yeah, like, just give me some of that. Give me Joseph Kosinski. Give me, like, I don't know who could score. Oh, give me, like, Nicholas Bertel. we didn't even talk about Andor, because I wanted to talk about Andor a little bit. I think we could save that maybe for a little bit, because that show's been phenomenal. But Nicholas Bertel, I think, can drop a nice score for that, like a nice, you know, beautiful score for that. Oh, this movie could get really cool. I'm just so glad he's back.
Yeah, it's really really cool.
That's so cool.
It's really cool. So yeah, that was our late stage breaking news segment that we debuted this week in lieu of our other segment. So I guess we're gonna transition right out and right into the Twitters and the social medias.
Give them the mediums.
So you can find us at Twitter at @ProjectINF_pod. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us there. Listen to that. Listen to all the 60 some odd episodes that we've done before that. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
Thank you very much.
Tell a friend.
Yeah.
Tell some people. Tell your coworkers.
Tell your coworkers.
Tell Warner Brothers. Tell Christopher Nolan specifically, so we can go to the Oppenheimer premiere.
Yeah, and then next week we're gonna talk about Black Adam.
Yeah, the hierarchy of power really did change in the DC universe before our eyes,
and it's The Rock. Who knew The Rock was talking about himself?
What if he Feige's this thing? Man, and you know that's not a horrible idea because Jeff Johns tried to do it and he could. Well, Jeff Johns admittedly might be a bad person, apparently.
Yeah.
So that's different.
I don't know. I can't rule it out now because, like I said, this Black Adam thing's picked up momentum over the last 2 weeks. It might be good.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't even talk about the reviews. So apparently the premiere happened, and you made the best point. I forget what it was about, and then it happened. You always want to take the premieres with a grain of salt because this one's a little different too because it's not like you have, you know, the director there. It's The Rock that's sitting there. So I doubt some people are going to walk right out of this movie and be like, this movie sucked. Like, nah, The Rock's literally, he had like multiple premieres like across the world. Like it was,
he doesn't turn it off, man. He doesn't, he's a promotional machine. Mm-hmm. This is why you get this guy to do things and do movies for you because the promotion he's going to put into it is otherworldly. Mm-hmm. Like movie stars don't do this.
Right. So yeah, maybe it might be like a combination thing, but this has got to be like one of the instances where like an actor's this is very Tom Cruise.
And if they're doing what they did tonight with these news drops, they also have to feel pretty good about Black Adam.
Yeah. That this is the thing that's going to kind of, propel them.
Hey, Black Adam's coming out this week. Here's what we're doing. Like, here's all this stuff for the future. Like, I know they've done this before, where they're like, here's our roadmap, yada, and it fails every single time. It's failed every time. They're like, here's our slate. I mean, you can go back to, 2015, 16? They're like, here's the slate. None of that stuff came out.
Yep. Yeah, we were supposed to get a Green Lantern. The Green Lantern Corps movie, we were supposed to get the Flash movie was supposed to come out in like 2017.
None of that happened, but it feels a little different. And it's because of this Black Adam thing, which is crazy for me to even say that. But that's what this is. So we're going to talk about Black Adam next week in full. I can't wait to talk about it. It's so crazy that this is where we're at with it. But yeah, man.
Maybe you go Wally West for that Flash movie. That might be an idea too.
Maybe
you go get one of these young actors that have been really popular and just get something that's completely different.
Yeah,
that was just a random thought.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Black Adam. We'll talk about any future implications that Black Adam may have on the DC EU coming out of that movie. And yeah, From me, from the Pug of the podcast.
I'll take Pug. Pug's a good guy. Pug's just an all-around good guy. I'll take that.
Yeah, we'll see you next week for Black Adam, which is shaping up to be an episode that I'm looking forward to more and more, I think, and a movie that I'm looking forward to more and more than I thought I was going to.
3 days away, and then we would have seen Black Adam.
All right, guys.
Why's it got to be Black Adam?
Come on, man. Don't end it like this.
Not like this.
Not like this.
We gotta go, man.
We gotta go, man. The Yankees are on. All right, guys.
No, they're not. It's raining.
Oh, it's rain delayed.
It's raining in the Bronx.
Oh, no. All right. Well, rain delay, and then, then the Yankees are on. But we'll see you next week for Black Adam. Goodbye.
Peace.